Hey friends, this is Waylon Lewis, and we are maybe starting a tradition today. I'm going to be talking with a friend who I've never met. He is one of our top writers on Elephant Journal, and we may do a monthly, my name is Waylon, talking with our writing stars about their articles, about their experience, but also just about whatever is on our minds. So his name is David Baumrind, and he did the Elephant Academy, which is our online training school. And he is a great writer and has had a lot of success in sharing with Elephant, and are sharing him as well. And he and I got into this discussion. I'm going to invite him to join whenever I see his request, which I might have missed. And we got into a discussion about The Last Dance. Has anyone out here seen the documentary The Last Dance? So The Last Dance is been a lot of fun. Sports has been canceled, obviously, with the coronavirus. And The Last Dance has kind of filled that hole for a lot of us who love to relax with something that isn't crappy television, that is just, good old dependable basketball at the end of the day. So The Last Dance, so we've been missing that. And The Last Dance is about the final season of one of the greatest teams of all time, the Chicago Bulls, with one of the greatest players of all time, if not the GOAT, Michael Jordan. Let me see. And then we had so I did an article on it. Let me see if he's asked to join. I'm not seeing him yet. David Baumrind, are you out there? So then we got into a discussion about The Last Dance, which was inspired. So I wrote this article about a wonderful scene. I don't know if any of you are watching it, but there's this amazing scene where Jordan is confronted with the question, did you give up being likable in order to win? Did you push? Oh, there you are. So David, you have to request to join, request to come on video. If you did, I missed it. So maybe you can do it again. Not really sure. Yeah, David, you got a request to be on the video. I'm not seeing a request. But come on and keep me company. So anyway, I wrote this article. We can't put blogs into Elephant, but if you go to elephantjournal.com and you search Michael Jordan, you will see my blog and this amazing, inspiring scene where Jordan, now he's retired, he's 55 or whatever, he just tears up and he starts crying. Because he's confronted with this balance, and I go through this as a boss. A lot of us go through this as probably parents or whatever. This balance between, pushing for excellence, drive for excellence, drive to succeed and to win, versus getting along and being nice and all that. So I wrote up this beautiful scene, and I encourage you to go to elephantjournal.com and search Michael Jordan. I got a request from Mick Shappy to be in my live video, but I'm waiting for you, David. Maybe I've missed it. No, I'm not seeing it. All right, well, we'll keep waiting for David. Mick's happy, not Mick Shappy. All right, so in the comments, someone left this amazing comment, and I'll read it to you right now. Here's David. Boom. Wait, David, you declined. Okay, well, you'll come on in a second. You got a request again, I think. So the comment said, it was quoting Ken Burns, and all of us, I hope, love Ken Burns. He's done baseball, he's done the Civil War, he's one of our great documentarians. He's done the Roosevelts, he's done the national parks. Any Ken Burns fans out here? All right, let me get you, David. Add. Yes,
Hey,
we did it.
got it.
David, good to have you.
That's what happens when it's the first time.
Yeah, I don't do this much either. I feel like all my friends are experts at adding people on Instagram, but I've only done it once. So I was just sort of filling the space a little bit, but kind of setting the table, which is you and I got to a discussion. I guess we're both basketball fans. You're a basketball fan?
I am, yes.
Yeah. And we've been missing that during the pandemic. We've been missing that kind of, I feel like I'm a basketball fan 50% because I love basketball and 50% because at the end of the day, long day, all I want to do is sit down and watch something that is like dependable. I don't want some crappy TV. And I can turn on basketball and watch LeBron or whomever I'm watching and just relax. And you're kind of engaged, but you're also just kind of relaxed. Does that feel similar for you, for your
Yeah,
basketball?
absolutely. You know what, though? I am hearing echoing two voices.
Oh, weird. That's annoying.
It is weird. So I'm
Is
going to jump off.
everyone hearing the echoes? Anyone else hearing echoes? You, if no one else is, David, you might want to put in headphones.
All right. I'm just going to jump off and jump right back on.
Okay, and maybe
All right.
grab headphones in case that'll help. I don't have headphones here. Okay, no echo, so we're doing okay. So let me just read the Ken Burns quote because it really blew my mind. So I'm a fan of The Last Dance. It's been amazing. It's on every Sunday. Here's the Ken Burns quote from Jeffrey Sargent. I've enjoyed this documentary series tremendously. This is a comment on my blog. We're talking about truth in documentaries. So if you've watched The Tiger King, if you've watched The Last Dance, if you've watched that Tony Robbins documentary, hey,
I'm back.
Any better?
Yeah, that's totally so much better.
All right.
Thanks.
So someone just asked, what's the topic? And I should have laid it out very clearly because the topic to me isn't even The Last Dance. The topic to me is The Last Dance, Tiger King, Tony Robbins documentary. It's this flood of documentary culture through Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime. And it's great on some level. And what's his name? The Fahrenheit, whatever it was, 911, Michael Moore. So the subject to me is sort of truth in documentaries. So I've been a huge fan of The Last Dance. And I was really bothered in a kind of good way. I was really excited and bothered to hear this comment. And then you and I discussed that, and then we could discuss that right now. And he said, the great historian, this is a comment on my Michael Jordan, The Last Dance documentary. And he said, the great historian and documentary filmmaker, Ken Burns, made no bones about giving his feedback. Quote, if you're there influencing want in aren't going to be in, period, says Ken Burns, saying he himself would never, pretty clear, allow such a partnership on one of his films. So the partnership in question here is that Michael Jordan, his production studio is producing The Last Dance.
Jump 23, and he has final say in what content is actually on the show. I dug a little deeper into it.
He does.
Because
you and I were trying to figure that out, and we read a couple articles.
I guess that was the deal he made with ESPN for them to actually go forward with the project.
Yeah,
so
that is chilling to me. I was talking with a friend yesterday who's also loving The Last Dance, and he said, who cares? You don't know what kind of influence he's having, because there's some critical stuff of Jordan, not everything's perfect. And I said, would you watch, let's say I become super famous and great and I do something amazing. Would you watch a 12-hour or whatever documentary about myself produced by myself?
Right.
No way.
What I was thinking in an even more extreme example, if somebody was going to do a documentary about Harvey Weinstein and really an expose, and then you found out that it was produced by Harvey Weinstein, nobody would even listen to one word that came out of that.
Yeah, and the point there, David, I love that. The point there is not that Michael Jordan is Harvey Weinstein, but that even in subtle ways, you can, as Ken Burns says here, you can leave out. So the final part of his quote is he says, and that's not the way you do good journalism, and it's certainly not the way you do good history, which is my business. And there's more to this comment. People can read it on, if you search Michael Jordan in quotes on Elephant Journal. I just put up this And it really colored I was so inspired by that amazing scene where Jordan tears up when he's asked about being nice versus leadership and winning and excellence. And Jordan says, that's on you. You don't want it enough, and I want it. And, you're either on board the excellence express or you're, I don't care. That's your deal. And that's your decision. And it was so moving. And it's Jordan crying and Jordan shooting and Jordan dunking and Jordan being triumphing and failing. And then you realize that he's the producer behind this commercial. I mean, it changes it in my mind, from a documentary to a commercial.
Oh, it totally does, because there's a whole other side of the story. And there have been ex-teammates of his that have been interviewed since Last Dance came on that would have had a whole other side to tell that were never invited onto it. And, I've enjoyed it too. I mean, I really loved watching the series. I watch it with my son. But since I found that out, I've also looked at it in a different light. And I know you're a journalism guy. So my question for you, and this really is my big question so far that's coming out of this, is where is the line between entertainment and journalism? And does it matter? I mean, that's really what I'm wondering these days. And it's a little tricky and blurred more than it used to be, I think.
So blurred. I mean, I think documentaries, to be fair, have always been blurry. They haven't always, Ken Burns is from the journalism school of documentary.
Right.
When he talks about the Roosevelts, he's not talking about his feelings or his opinion about them. He's looking at the history and he's letting the facts create the emotions. It's not that and people always say, oh, journalism shouldn't have emotions or opinions. No, you can have tons of, like, if you watch that baseball documentary or Civil War documentary by Ken Burns, the emotion is rich, and the music and the feelings from that, but it's from the facts best that he can find.
Right.
I think it does matter. Personally, I'm still going to enjoy The Last Dance, but, back in the day, I really enjoyed the Michael Jordan commercials by Nike with Spike Lee. With Spike Lee and with, what was the other one? There was some great one. Oh, about him failing. Have you ever seen?
I'm not sure I've seen that one.
Yeah.
I know I saw the Spike Lee where he was Morris. Those were great.
Yeah, and there's one by Jordan. It's just a voiceover, and it's like, I have failed 1,000 times. I have missed 10,000 shots. I have lost 23,000 games. I'm messing up the numbers, but I have missed 2,000 last second shots, and he talks about failure and why that makes him great and why that makes all of us who try and fail then keep trying great. And it's a commercial and it's beautiful. So it's not that commercials can't be, or novels, right? Fiction can't be inspiring. Of course it can be, but I don't want to watch a documentary about you produced by you. I don't want to watch a documentary by me.
And the thing is, I don't know how it struck you, but I looked, I had sent you that message, like, are you sure he's a producer? Because I didn't see that anywhere. Because I actually looked, I wondered, because they were sort of glancing over some things, and I looked for his name. I looked online at the credits. I looked at the credits at the end of each episode. There's no Michael Jordan or any company affiliated with him. So it was hidden.
Let me just interject there, because what you did is something only 0.1% of people do, which is even look in the credits. Most people don't even have that thought. And the fact that he hid his production studio from the credits means that no one, including yourself, knew. I mean, to the credit of journalism, CBS, and as I Googled.
Right. It was out there if you wanted to find it. But it hadn't occurred to me to even look until we started having that conversation.
No. And, I think there was some quote in one of those articles about Horace Grant, one of his teammates, who had real problems with Jordan, and I think in some ways left the team because of Jordan. I'm not really remembering, but there was some real conflict there, and he did leave the team.
There are ex-players. Do you know his name is Hodges? Craig Hodges, I think, was a teammate of Jordan's in the earlier years to the mid time. So he was interviewed. He was not on the documentary, if that's what we're calling it. But he said that, like, his teammates he was not well liked And granted, this is only his side. I have no idea if that's accurate either.
Yeah.
That's just his side. But that he was basically brutal to his teammates. And the deal was you either fell in line with what he wanted or you weren't going to see the ball. And he did make a reference in the documentary about, there's certain players he didn't want with the ball, at the end of the game and all that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There were just all kinds of questions. I don't even know. They didn't even touch on really why this happened. So for those of us that follow sports, you think you want to keep the championships going until you lose. And Jordan even said that in one of the episodes, keep it going. And then when we lose it, fine, do what you have to do. But I mean, this was in the midst of a historic run, really. And then just all of a sudden, well, they say, Phil Jackson, even if you are going 82-0, you're not coming back. And that comment struck me as so odd. Like, why is he not coming back, even if he didn't even lose a game all season? It didn't really make sense to me, and they never really went into that at all. I don't know if you wondered about that, but...
Well, they went into Jerry Krause's conflict with Jordan and Phil Jackson and how Jordan was loyal to Phil. But again, to me, like, that story about him being a bully and being mean to his teammates, on some level, he managed, as the producer of this, to make that so inspiring, because I'm a boss and I go through all the time, like, people don't always like me and I'm doing my best, and I'm actually trying really hard, unlike Jordan, I think, to connect and be genuine and be helpful. But as a boss, you have to make decisions, you have to draw the line, you have to do all these things. And so I think many people, as the front page of Reddit, found that scene about being likable versus excellence so inspiring. And then you realize he's framing it, and he's showing him picking on what was his name, Burris or something?
Scotty Burrell.
Yeah. But it's like, but Burrell liked him, and it was sort of likable. Who is he leaving out? Like you were kind of saying. And just for, some elephant readers may not be basketball fans, this isn't just The Last Dance. This is also, so there was this Tony Robbins documentary on Netflix.
Yes.
And that was produced by a student of his, I'm pretty sure. And it was clear that it was this sort of favorable commercial. And then,
to me, that was a total infomercial. I saw that, and I'm not saying he hasn't helped a lot of people, and whatever the rumors and all that, I'm not even going to go into that. I'm sure it was clear a lot of people really love him, and he's helped a lot of people. But
well said.
There was no other side other than the promotion that he wanted us to see. That was even less sides than in The Last Dance. So,
well, and I had written over the years about Tony Robbins has been sued many times for, and maybe it's been settled out of court or whatever, but for sort of sketchy situations with his healing and with his challenging people. And again, like you said, anytime a spiritual teacher, even the best one, gets in there with someone's neurosis and is confronting them and not just trying to be pleasing or easy, there's going to be conflict and stuff. But so it's the Tony Robbins, it's The Last Dance.
Right.
And then the other one I was thinking of, what was the third one?
Well, you had mentioned Tiger King, but...
Yes. So Tiger King has been on the front page of Reddit several times. So apparently he said the N-word all the time, and he was blatantly racist. They cut all of that out. Apparently, I never watched it because I care about tigers, and it seemed really disgusting.
I watched one episode, and it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So I'm not even sure what it was.
He was starving many of the tigers all the time, and then feeding them rotten meat. And they were just desperate. And apparently Carol Baskin, his sort of rival person, actually was running a respectable rescue, and they portrayed it in the worst way, and they showed a tiny pen, but that's only where they put the tiger while they're cleaning the actual proper cages. And she was anyway, there's a lot more stuff, and I kind of didn't care on some level because it was like I didn't want to watch it. But I think we're seeing a flood of, if Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, etc., are the gatekeepers of what we're going to learn and how we're going to enjoy our 2 hours at the end of the day or hour at the end of the day after work. And that's going to be our perception of reality. Remember, a whole group of people rose up around the Tiger King saying, get this guy out of jail, free Tiger King. And Carol Baskin is evil, and people are harassing her. I mean, this has a real effect, and it's exactly what we saw with WhatsApp helping elect Bolsonaro, who then led to the Amazon rainforest going on fire. Or at least part of that, it was a significant part of that. Bolsonaro was like the Trump of Brazil, and he was like, to hell with the indigenous peoples, we want to make money. And that's fair, but we want to report that and debate with that and maybe vote him out if that's his view. But WhatsApp rumors, which is owned by Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, we're seeing a lot of lies and half-truths. And half-truths are more dangerous than lies often because they're half-true.
You know, ESPN also did the OJ documentary, Made in America. I don't know if you remember
Yeah,
that.
I watched part of that.
That got critically acclaimed. I mean, that was really a true documentary. They just put all the facts out there. And to a degree, I don't think everybody needs somebody to tell us what it all means and make the decision for us. Right. It's like, tell me all the information about Jordan and the Bulls, and then I'll decide what that means to me. But when I feel like you're hiding things from me, then all of a sudden it changes, I guess, my trust level on what I'm seeing, if that makes sense.
100% well said. Yeah. Yeah, so it's less about, like, a Jordan documentary not produced by Jordan could be just as moving. We could fall in love with him. We could see that he failed in some ways, and we could identify with that. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say about the Jordan documentary, which is awful, but, you know, there's a lot of love expressed for his father, and I had written about this. But it doesn't take, you don't have to read too much to run into journalists reporting the fact that Michael Jordan's sister alleged, and that's a key word, alleged that their father had sexually abused her, had raped her, and that when she confronted them about that, they kind of dismissed her. And in fact, the mother defended, you know, attacked the daughter about that. And that certainly puts the father in a different light. And the fact that Jordan's not even raising that to kind of dismiss it, you know, he's not even...
that and the whole gambling, you know, the whole gambling angle was another big part of that. There were just a lot of obvious unanswered questions that they didn't even go into. And okay,
also,
so, you know.
Even the stuff they went into, again, if I'm Magic Johnson, I was a little surprised. Magic is a big sweetie. He was my childhood idol. So when he says, without even debating, when he says, oh, Michael Jordan's the greatest of all time, I was a little surprised. I'm like, you know, okay, you don't have a little bit of like, you don't want to qualify that slightly, like Bird, Magic. Okay, Jordan might have exceeded us slightly, but who knows, you know. And yeah, we probably think Jordan is the greatest of all time. But the fact that Magic, I just think about this, the fact that Magic and everybody is sort of auditioning whatever they're saying to be in the documentary, and if it's not pleasing, it may not be in there, changes how people talk, even the people we do see on camera or the info we do get. It's a little bit like Trump saying to the governors, you better be nice to me if you want any aid. It's going to change how people say anything and are honest.
And the thing is, for me, I think that's what people want. I mean, even if he's not perfect, and maybe he was a lousy teammate sometimes, and maybe he was a big jerk and regrets it, and he shouldn't have been that way. You know, being honest about that and showing that side, I think connects with more people than doing it this way. I mean, that's kind of the irony of it, to me.
And it makes sense because Jordan was always so guarded. You know, his famous, like, Republicans buy sneakers too.
I know. That's just...
Well, but even if that's great, it's like he was always so uninvolved and you know, he never spoke. Like, seeing him cry at Kobe's, whatever it was, the eulogy, funeral, it wasn't really a funeral, but that was so powerful, I felt like, because I watched that and I was like, wow, I've never seen Jordan. I've seen him play, but I've never seen him just be human. I mean, when he appeared infamously at his Hall of Fame speech in, like, I don't remember when it was, 2010 or something, he spent the entire time attacking people who he was mad at. And people
Right.
are like, who is this guy? So it makes sense that he would want to have a lot of control over his legacy. But
And then there was the one scene, the first championship he won after his dad was killed, and he broke down in the locker room after that. That was really the other time that I saw it. But, you know, the other thing that comes to mind, it's the same with Tony Robbins. These guys have built such empires that it's hard to untangle the person from the empire they built. And I feel like, you know, with Jordan, he's kind of protecting, his brand. You know, it's more about the brand than about him personally a little bit. And that's where it really gets a little more convoluted for me, because his endorsement brands have gotten big boosts from this. And I don't know, personally, I've watched, well, there's 2 episodes left, so I guess I've watched 8. I don't know very much more about him as a person than I did from episode 1, to be honest with you. Little bits here and there, but his personal life. And it's hard to notice sometimes because there's such great footage and great interviews. And it's always moving and it's always entertaining. But I really didn't learn, for a documentary, I really didn't learn anything new about him for the most part, maybe little things here and there. I don't know if you did or not, but.
Well, now, I mean, I've learned a lot, which is that he cares more about his brand, as you were kind of saying, than just being like, here I am, you know. Like I did even before I knew this about Ken Burns making this clear and that it wasn't a documentary, it was a commercial, basically. And again, commercials can be fun, but it was curious to me, like when Pippen was wildly underpaid and he was an all-star and he was Jordan's right-hand man, that when Pippen said, look, I want more money or I'm not playing, Jordan's response was to be like, Pippen's being immature. He's not, he doesn't care about the team. He doesn't care about the championship. He's being selfish. You would think a normal reaction, if you're Michael Jordan, you have a lot of power, would be to say, hey, Bulls, you better pony up. Like if he had just gone into the, you know, front page of the Chicago, whatever it is, the papers, if he had just said, I demand that Pippen gets paid more. He signed a contract that's well below what is worth. Yeah, he made a mistake signing that contract, but he deserves it. We're grateful. Let's get him something better.
Yeah. So there were rumors that those two didn't really get along.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing is, we know that Jordan will do that because he basically did that with Phil Jackson. He said, if he's gone, I'm gone. That's it.
Right.
And, you know, they continued on their plan, but he made it clear that if they went ahead and did that, if Krause did that, that's it. He was gone too. And he would have stayed if Phil Jackson stayed. So it's not like he never did it.
So we're talking about, I'm here with David Baumrind, star writer. I hope you heard me say all that stuff.
Well, that's very kind of you.
Well, it's true. It's factual. You are not the producer of this statement.
That's good.
And we're talking not just about The Last Dance, this amazing Jordan documentary that everyone's enjoying, and the issues around it not really being a documentary, that Jordan produced it, which is kept secret by Jordan. And then we're also talking about Tony Robbins and it's sort of producing this commercial about him. And we're talking about Tiger King. So it's kind of comes back to a core concern around Elephant and Elephant Academy, which you were a mentor in and you had done, is can we afford to like, how do we tell the truth? You know, if we're afraid of the truth being a little bit negative, like that whole thing about Jordan being unlikable could have gone the wrong way. And he said, no, I want to frame it so it goes the right way. And I get it. So without blaming Jordan and others, it's hard for all of us in our own lives to be honest about tough things. But ultimately, that's the vulnerability or the bravery and the, you know, that
I think it's that Allen Ginsberg quote that you always say about what people want to hear most is what we least want to share. Right.
Yeah. So, you know, it's easy to take pot shots at someone like Jordan, who's been so exposed, and you can understand why he'd want to have some control over the narrative around his legacy, but it's still disappointing that it's not open around that.
Right.
We have a couple questions. Jesse says, don't think most sports fans really care about the kind of human the athlete is. I mean, maybe that's true. I would say it's like I was a rabid sports fan growing up, and then less so after I was like 25. But I definitely cared, I wanted to know everything about my idols, like, Magic Johnson, Dave Winfield. That was my era. Like, you see little boys and girls worshiping sports heroes. Are they worshiping the truth or some brand? We don't know, but I think we do care generally. I think a lot of people, are happy to win, even if they have a Michael Vick, or is that his name? Like, you have some like super questionable, controversial guy and he wins. Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing in music. People still love Chris Brown because he's turning out the hits, and he's, confirmed to be an abusive person, so people will overlook a lot when success is there. What do you think around that?
And that, I think that's a totally fair point. And but for me, the issue isn't really about whether we care about how human they are. I happen to care, but I understand that a lot of people don't care. What I care about is if I'm sort of being sold something that's not representing what it is. Like, if you want to make it an entertainment series about Michael Jordan and the Bulls, and I know they're not really going to give me anything I just have a different mind frame than if I think it's one thing and they're giving me another and hiding the fact that he's the producer. If he's, I'm the producer, and I'm not letting everything out. This is what I want to show. It's about this. Enjoy it, don't enjoy it, doesn't really matter. That to me is a totally different thing than calling it a documentary.
Right.
Implying that you're going to get multiple sides, and documentary means something to me.
And I think I
really
had that question recently. I like that you say that, because I've been kind of confused over the last year, like with Tiger King, and I'm like, wait, weren't documentaries supposed to be kind of honest? Like, when I went to see Michael Moore's Fahrenheit 9/11, that was called a documentary, but it was clear, because Michael Moore is incredibly partisan, and who he is. He's a weird partisan dude. You knew it was his attack piece on Bush and whatever. Like, you knew it was obvious. It was not like purporting to be journalism that was objective or something. Exactly. I think that's a good point. Like, if we're willing to drink, say, a soda, and the soda has some crappy ingredients in it, we can make the decision. We can say, hey, I like Coke, I'm going to drink it. Right. But if they hide what's in it and we're giving it to our kid or to ourselves for 20 years, we're going to be pissed. So, it is. All right. There's some New York Times article that came out a couple days ago saying that we're wrong to think coworkers should ever have our back. That's from Run for Maloney. I don't know about that article, but I don't think it's about people having our back or not. It's just, you want some culture of kind of honesty and maybe some positive honesty, not sort of, we don't need to belittle one another all the time, but we got to be willing, like with a friend or a loved one, you're gonna say, hey, you have spaghetti on your face. Hey, when you did that thing, you offended me.
I mean, in a different arena, so all of us that write for Elephant, and there's a lot of us now, and people that have come through the academy, when we read our articles, we are in a certain mindset that we're getting somebody's actual vulnerable story. We're not writing fiction here, that's not labeled as fiction. So it even affects us. Like, if we found out, oh, I wrote all these great articles, and then you find out that, well, actually, that's not how it was at all. It would totally change what my writing would be, or what any of our writing would be. So in a way, we all struggle with this same type of issue. How much do we divulge, and what does that do to, to the mission and integrity of what we're trying to do?
Yeah, and Rach, the Chica Elgal, I don't know how to say your handle, but you say, great point. The assumption is that documentaries are balanced and fair. That is not so. They document a point of view. Many documentary makers aim for a balance, but the viewer has to come in knowing that. I think that's fair, but again, journalism can have a point of view. Like journalism will report that climate change is real. Balance is not saying, well, it's real according to people who know anything, but it's not real according to people who don't know anything and are partisan. The way I said it actually could be journalism, but you don't just say, well, half of the people say it's not real, so maybe it's not real. I do think, again, coming back to your point, David, just be super transparent, because I do think, to give credit, Rach, to documentarians, there are a lot out there who want to tell an honest story. Even if it is a story and it's meant to move people. You know, if like a friend of mine produced The Cove, or directed The Cove, and Game Changers, which are about, you know, not killing dolphins or killing dolphins, and about going vegan and being an athlete. And I think if we found out that, do you know the Game Changers, that vegan documentary? It's on Netflix. If we found out that they talk about a lot of scientists reporting stuff. And, you know, when I watched that, I was like, I want to hear from doctors who think the opposite, you know?
Right. And
I did some research, and I, you know, largely came away saying, okay, they're reporting accurate stuff.
Right.
But if I'm going to watch a documentary about going vegan and being an athlete and it being healthy or not, and they're lying to me, or they're picking quack doctors from over here,
or just aligned with their agenda. This is totally off point, but not. But back in 2011, I had some pretty serious neck surgery from actually a horse accident I had. But I didn't want to have surgery. And of course, I knew if I went to a surgeon, he's going to tell me that I need to have surgery. So to your point, I went to a neurologist that was anti-surgery, because I wanted to know what he said. And he said I needed surgery. So that carried a complete different weight to me than a surgeon telling me I need surgery. That's what they do. So it comes up in life in all different ways.
Yeah, there's a Japanese expression, I believe, or maybe I'm confusing it. No, there's a Japanese expression that has nothing to do with what I was going to say. So there's another expression that says, if you're a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. Right. And that's sort of like what you're saying about surgeons. We got some more comments. I love this. I think anytime, from Taylor, a documentary has access to the focus of the doc, then it's likely biased in that person's favor. I would argue against that strongly. I would say journalists will always try to interview the subject of their story. And the fact that the subject agrees or not to be quoted doesn't mean that the journalist has agreed to say anything favorable. I've been interviewed many times, not on the level of Michael Jordan, but I've been interviewed many times, and you know, as Alex Bogusky, a friend here in Boulder, says, I've never been quoted, I've only been misquoted. Like, every story that comes out ever from journalism is full of mistakes in your mind. So again, I'm sympathetic with Jordan, but it's also full of, like, there might be some criticism in there, and that can be okay. You know, if someone says, wow, Waylon has built this really amazing website, but it's far smaller than, you know, I don't know, it's like puny and it makes no difference to the whole world, I'd be like, yeah, that's criticism. We do have millions of readers. I might argue, I might write in, but I would also take it. I would say, okay, you know, maybe that's a fair criticism. I would consider it, you know.
There's also all different levels of risk too. I mean, I might reveal something and get criticized for something, and for my life, it might mean one thing. For Jordan, it might mean multi-billions of dollars at stake for him. That is a different, obviously, I cannot relate to that, but it's a different mindset that he may be much more guarded about it than me, who might have a bad day or week or whatever it is after it. I don't know.
And again, that's okay, but just be transparent about that.
Exactly.
So we got a shout out for the confessional poets and sexton Joan Didion. Isn't it our responsibility from lay to evaluate the info that we're consuming, as in any biography, history book, documentary, etc.? Yes, and that's exactly what David and I are doing right now. We I think, I won't speak for you, but I watched this. I enjoyed it thoroughly, to the point where I blogged about it on Elephant, even though I knew no one would read it because we're like not particularly a basketball fan audience. And And I was very troubled and also very grateful to get that comment from that gentleman saying, hey, Ken Burns is really criticizing this. Here's what he says. And then with David here in the video, we proceeded to kind of investigate and say, hey, is he really because I kind of was lazy. I mean, I have a lot going on. And I heard, oh, he's a producer. I was like, okay. I didn't look into it. You were like, really? I don't see him as listed as a producer. I don't think you're right, Waylon. And so then we're like Googling. We're like, oh my God. Not only is he the producer, but he's hiding that fact.
Right. That's crazy.
Just be honest, you know? And I think Jordan has so many fans, and the sports culture is such a cult of personality culture that if he came out and said, hey, lots of people hated me. I was a bully and I won. You know, a lot of people also liked me. Be like Mike, you know, I'm imperfect. Here I am. If he had just said something like that, everyone would have been like, you know what? Yeah. I'm buying your shoes.
Like Bill Parcells. Do you know who Bill Parcells is?
Yeah.
You know, so he won many Super Bowls, and he was the Giants coach, and he has been interviewed, and they've done documentaries on him, and he was very outgoing about the fact that he was really not nice to a lot of players, but he just wanted to win, and that's what he had to do to get the level up. And he's like, looking back, I probably could have done some things differently. I wasn't always the best person I could be, but that's what I was trying to do. Yeah. But, you know, you can appreciate that. You know, he wasn't a malicious guy. He just wasn't perfect, and that's how he was. So,
and I think I appreciated that about Jordan. Like when I saw that, I almost felt like crying, because it's so hard to be in any position of responsibility, or if you're striving for excellence or perfection, you know, which I do strive for with an elephant. I want us to be excellent. I want us to get things right. You know, it was cathartically heartbreaking in a positive way to see him crying and feeling that pain of not being liked all the time, but really caring more about excellence ultimately. And that was so moving. So Taylor says, I don't think documentary filmmakers should automatically be considered journalists. 100% agree. But I think a lot of people are under that impression. And I think that's including me, frankly, half the time.
I was one of those too.
Yeah. So I think, you know, we're doing this on some level to just say, okay, documentaries are now entertainment first. And if they happen to be journalism and to be true, that's a bonus. But I'm going to go in assuming the opposite of what we all assumed 10 years ago, which is these are true.
I realized last night, and I really hadn't given a lot of thought before that, but I realized for the first time that I don't really know what a documentary is anymore. I don't know what that means. Right. I don't know what to do with that.
Well, I think, you know, as always, we you know, from a Buddhist point of view, we keep an open mind, but we also keep our discernment, critical intelligence. We don't let go of, it's called prajna, or insight. It's like your perception. So when something's bugging you, is this real? You don't push that away just because you love Jordan, you know.
Right. And I'm still going to watch the last 2 episodes, and I'm going to enjoy it immensely. So it's not about that.
Well, like I said before, like the Jordan commercials, and I blogged that Jordan failing commercial like 10 years ago on Elephant, are so great. I mean, they're fantastic. Commercials can be amazing, but you know they're a commercial.
Right.
Mick is saying, I've seen the most authentic people are the ones who are able to insulate themselves with people who will not always tell them what they want to hear. It takes a strong person to do that. Yeah, I don't know if I totally get that. I think ideally we surround ourselves with friends who are honest to us. Like I was in a real serious relationship a year ago, and it was a good relationship, but I had, you know, some dear friends around me, and it wasn't about her, it was about me, who looked at me and said, Waylon, we don't think you're really in love. You think you're in love, but, you know, we're not seeing that. And people really challenged me, and it was like a gut punch, and I really argued with them. But ultimately, that feeling didn't go away, so I listened to it.
Well, it's more helpful than when they tell you after the fact. Oh, yeah, we all knew that.
Yeah, I don't want to be surrounded by, you know, only a very insecure, bully surrounds himself with yes men and sycophants. And if we're all thinking about President Trump, there you go. People will embrace the honesty because there hasn't been anyone like him in the NBA. Yeah, I think anytime, I don't know about all of that, but I think, yeah, whenever you see someone who's really honest and has a raw moment, and Jordan has had raw moments, but they're within the context of him allowing them to be shown or not, that can be very powerful. Oh, yeah. Okay, Mick, I'm getting it more. You're saying they can easily get lost and become a product of their marketing team. Did you see the Kenny Anderson, Mr. Chibbs? Anderson is as flawed as you get, and it was pretty honest, a good watch. Though it wasn't 100% honest. I don't know that. Do you know that one, Mr. Chibbs?
I haven't seen it, but I've heard about it.
Oh, yeah, I don't even know. Yeah, the burden is always ultimately on the consumer to determine truthfulness. Yeah, I agree, but not really. I mean, there literally is a governmental responsibility in a democracy to make sure that media has certain ethics. And we literally, the guy who got rid of that in the 80s was Ronald Reagan. It is ultimately on us, but if the EPA, for example, as they are doing, the EPA under Trump is now rolling back pollution and poison regulations. And they're not only rolling it back, but they're allowing the businesses to not disclose the poison or the pollution. So, we can't all be, what's her name? Julia Roberts played her in a movie. We can't all know.
Oh, Erin Brockovich?
We can't all be Erin Brockovich. We ultimately need some rules and regulations around transparency and honesty. And then, like David was saying, if we're presented with that, then we can be discerning. But if I don't know, I mean, how many children, this has happened all over the US, grow up and get epic rates of cancer or whatever because they're close to a particular mine or a particular, you can't blame those children and say, well, they should have known or the parents should have known. I don't think that's totally fair. It can't all be on us. I think there has to be an expectation of basic decency, and that has to be reflected in laws. And if not, we're going to sue their asses, if it's a serious thing. Anyway, let's wrap up. Do you have anything else to say on the documentary question?
Not on the documentary. I think we hashed it out pretty well.
Just tell me and be honest, brutally honest.
Okay.
Because this is unedited. You could literally say anything you want.
I can.
This is live. If you see this later on YouTube, I may have edited it out. But right now is your chance. So you're one of the more active, consistent writers, and you also did Elephant Academy, our online sort of university. What's your experience as a writer? I know you make money sometimes when you're popular, and how is it going overall? And please be brutally honest.
Well, brutally honest, my answer is that the Academy basically changed my life. And I couldn't recommend it more. And I'm not trying to be an infomercial either, but it is the way it is. I'd gone through a rough personal time, had a marriage dissolve, and a lot of people go through personal things. So in Googling different articles about it, I ended up at Elephant. All of a sudden, a lot of articles, Elephant Journal, great. Became a subscriber, which was great. And then the offer came for the Academy one day. And I sat there, and I've not ever been a formal writer at all. In fact, I didn't like writing, and I avoided English and writing for most of my life.
I had no idea. That's amazing.
Yeah, because the comments in school were always the same. With writing, he doesn't apply himself. I had a lot to say, but I had no access to it. My writing wasn't vulnerable. It wasn't anything except words. And it never worked for me, and I would never had a good experience. And I never really thought about it until that day, that the Elephant Academy offer showed up on my screen. And I'd started doing some journaling. I had done a lot of work in recovering from being an adult child of an alcoholic and codependency, and really was getting a handle on that for the first time in my life. And that day, I don't know why, there was no reason for me to say I have to do the academy, but I said I have to do the academy. I didn't really know why. I just knew that it was going to change things for me. And I was just going to try and learn and do my best. So I joined, and nothing's been the same for me since. I mean, the community, really above all, I know you talk about it all the time, but I'm still an active part of that community. That's meant a lot to me. And the opportunity to not only learn how to write, but for me it was learn how to be vulnerable with myself and connect with the part of me that has the stories to say and can be helpful and to be of benefit to other people. Because for me, that was my dream. If I can take all the stuff that I went through and somehow write about it and be able to help other people, nothing really would be better than that. But I had no idea how to do that. So, it's a great community, great staff, and the editors were fantastic. And, Shruti, she was my mentor. And it was hard. It was a learning experience, and it was scary. And we talk about vulnerability. And, the first time I really, in my writing, I'd done a few articles in the academy about grief, about boundaries. And then I decided to write about my codependency, but not in a straightforward way. It was about the articles I saw about non-attachment. I read a lot of articles, on Elephant, there's a lot of attachment about impermanence, non-attachment, and they just never really resonated with me. They didn't work for me. So I wrote about it, and I shared it with Shruti, because she was my, mentor, and she was just, she's a straight shooter, and I owe her so much. If you're on here by any chance, thank you a million times. But she called me and she said, this article, I don't really get it. I'm not doing anything for me. There's already lots of articles about that. And I said, yeah, but the thing is, for me, attachment is what I want and permanence is what I want. So to say don't want that was always my goal. So she said, oh, well, why don't you write that? And I said, you want me to write about that? About my codependency? And I was like, are you kidding? So all right, so I wrote it, and she said she loved it. She's like, I don't have any experience being those, but I really enjoyed the article. So wrote it, and I put a very non-committal picture with a very non-committal title that was very safe. Handed it in, and then I got the email, it's been accepted, and it's great. And then I was driving one day, and a friend of mine texted me, said, your article's live, you better take a look. So I go take a look, and the editors changed the title to A Codependent's Guide to Non-Attachment. And I was like, it's in the title. And I started freaking out. Honestly, I was panicking, because although I wrote about it, you actually had to go in and read the article to see that.
Right.
And I realized in that split second that I still had enough shame around those words, that to see it in the title, I'm like, oh man, everybody's going to know. And it's literally like 2 seconds. I'm like, I'm ruined. I'm leaving the country. They got to take the article down. They got to change it. I was just freaking out. And then, I breathed. I'm like, all right, just start breathing and calming myself down. And then I said, if I'm really serious about this, and serious about vulnerability, and serious about writing the way you all are trying to teach us to write, so, this is just going to have to be okay. And I let it go. I said, whatever's going to happen is going to happen.
Wow.
And do you know that article, it was the first one of mine that took off in a way that no other had since. And I got so many heartwarming comments from people that are like, oh my God, those are my words. You could be saying what I feel all the time, and I've never read it this way. And just so moving of an experience. And then I realized also, like, it was very cathartic for me to write it. But I'm like, oh my God, I am so far from not alone in this. There are so many of us who struggle with these same issues, who often feel like we're the only ones and everybody else is living the Instagram life. And And it's not that way. And there are a lot of us. And it took a huge risk for me to learn that it really was, in a way, the least risky thing that I did in the end. I mean, because, you know, I found my voice. So, I mean, it felt risky, but to get something huge, I guess you have to step up and you have to risk something. So it was the whole process, and it's not easy to write like that all the time. You know that. My group challenged me all the time. You know, we had the small groups. We did a lot of peer editing, and they would just say, "No, Dave, not deep enough. No, we know you can do better than that." And they would just, you know, kick it back to me. So by the time it got to the editors, we'd already put a lot of work into it. But you know, but that's what the Academy offers. It offers connection, and it offers community, and it offers the ability to be published, which for me, I was like, man, if I ever have one article published, I'm set for life. That's like the greatest thing that could ever happen. So wasn't really thinking about sort of a pseudo career writing. Right. And then here we are down the road. You know, I've had a lot of articles, and I still work hard at it, and I still, you know, I'm grateful for the opportunity every day in every article that I put in. And I know I'm going to sound like an infomercial again. Nobody asked me to say all these things, but it's true. It really has the power to change lives. It changed mine, and my story is not unique. I'm not the only one who's had this great of an experience. And, you know, not everybody has it. Not everybody has the time or energy to be able to put in what you can put in. But the opportunity is there, and it's a unique one, and it's worth so much more than anybody can even imagine before you take a shot and go through the Academy. So that's a very long answer to your question, but it's, you know, my life's not been the same since.
Well, it's wonderful to hear that. And we all have to go read your article, The Codependence Guide.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And I hope, I want the editors to hear this too, because it's powerful just to hear from our point of view how powerful a title or an image change can be. And, you know, what we may do cavalierly because we want it to be genuine or for it to connect really can, you know, have a life effect for positive or for ill.
It can. I know the editor probably knew what I was doing with the title, and probably knew it was a little push, you know?
Yeah.
And it was good because I didn't take that step myself. I got pushed there a little bit, but it was an encouraging, you know, it was an encouraging, loving push, if that makes sense. It was not anything negative. So it was great.
Well, David, thank you so much. And I hope you may have inspired our discussion around the last word, may have inspired me to do these videos every, maybe once a month with a different writer on Elephant. And so we'll put this up and we'll link to your article somehow. And thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So
it was a lot of fun.
We'll watch Sunday. It'll be fun, and we'll know what we're watching.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. David Baumrind.
All right. Take care.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out.
Bye.